Greetings, everyone. This is the Our World Media Network, and welcome once again to yet another edition of the Urban Algorithm. I'm your host, Wayne Gilman, and proud to be with you this Friday afternoon. Normally, we do the show on Saturday, but we are so pleased to have some very honored and guests and friends that I've known for quite some time, and we have a very special show for this afternoon. So we're going to hit the ground running and introduce you to everyone who's going to be participating. Unlike some of my earlier shows on politics and real estate and sports, we're going to focus in on the arts today, which has a little bit of the political flavor to it. As we go on, you'll see what I'm talking about. But my special guest for this particular segment is a longtime friend, former colleague, and one of the queens of New York broadcasting, going way back when, before there was a Allison Steele and a Delilah and a Wendy Williams, there was a Vi Higginsen. And I'm so pleased to have Vi on with us. My second guest to be a participant in all this is Eric Payne, accomplished actor. And maybe you want to wave, Eric, so people know who you are. Everyone knows Vi. and Eric has been around for quite some time. He has a very impressive resume. I was really impressed by looking at some of his credits, over 60 film credits to speak of, film and television. And we also share the mic on a weekly basis on Blogtalk Radio, talking about everything, soup to nuts. And another participant in that Blog Talk Radio show is a walking anthology, as I call it, in history, Black history in particular, an anthology on the arts, a curator of the, I forgot the name of the museum, the Louis Armstrong Museum in Queens. Byron C. Saunders, welcome to the show. I am so pleased to have all of you there. I'm hoping that my voice holds up. I've been sipping strong Caribbean, Trinidadian rum every night. I don't know, I picked up a cold. It worked for my parents and my ancestors. It better work for me. But if I crap out within the hour, you'll know why. And that's it. I have no shame. Welcome to the Urban Algorithm. And I brought everyone together because we're living in some rather strange times. I from time to time, from the time I was on the air doing talk radio, I would always talk about my ambitions in the area of real estate, and I'm one to promote tangible assets as opposed to what goes on in the Wall Street casino. But the deal is that we're in an era right now where everyone's business in the last 24 months, mostly all of last year, if you want to go as far back as February or January, people were beginning to feel the effects of this pandemic that was coming upon us. And it's affected everyone in all sorts of businesses. And one thing that in a good economy, the theory was from a lot of the business people that if you were in entertainment or if you were an undertaker, you're not affected by any kind of crisis that comes on. Because there's always going to be a need to bury folks, and there's always going to be a need to be entertained. And I know that had to be a challenge for a lot of us who are in the entertainment field. And I'm going to kick things off with the Queen, Vi Higginsen, because I know basically you have been really, really an example of a survivor. No matter what challenges have been thrown before you, you seem to land on top. And, I just hope you could rub some of that off on me and so many other people who have been successful. How did it affect you last year?
Oh my, let me tell you, Wayne, just how it affected us. Just before the pandemic, we were scheduled to go to the Montreux Jazz Festival in Brazil.
Wow.
Couldn't happen. We were scheduled in that season to go to Africa for the very first time. We had a ticket in our hand to go to America's Got Talent
Oh,
to be to go to California. We had gone through all the steps, and the day after we had the ticket in our hand, everything shut down. We were prepared to do a commercial for the Olympics in Japan. We were on a huge tight schedule.
wow.
We had just done a showcase to go on tour with our commercial group called Sing Harlem, Harlem Sings, and everything got shut down. But I do have to tell you that I have a daughter named Noelle Higginson. And Noelle said, we are not going to shut down. We are
Mm.
going to figure this out. And she then began to understand the virtual landscape.
Oh,
She began to move the company toward the virtual performances. She learned all of the technology. She got the group together so that we could continue to operate during the pandemic, and that was inside of the virtual space. We did everything. We did galas, we did bar mitzvahs, we did all kinds of things. So we didn't stop because we understood that this pandemic was global and that it would affect everybody. And it meant that we need music now more than ever, because it is the kind of thing that really engulfs us, and it affects our mind, our body, and our spirit and our emotions. And listen, we needed to have an escape and a release. And so through the music, we were able to survive through it. And we did, when we could socially distance, we got space big enough so that we could do that. And those who could not come, we were able to do it virtually. So, yes, we found a way to work through the pandemic and with the pandemic. And thank God all of us have survived through it, and we're strong and safe and healthy.
Well, that is really a great story. Just watching some of the news outlets that I look at and some of the stories that I've read, that I got the impression, a lot of Broadway was certainly shut down. I mean, you couldn't go into theaters like that, but you were able to do it from your location in Harlem. So I could just get a little thumbnail sketch of what the backdrop was all about.
Oh, yeah. Well, we operate in a five-story brownstone in Harlem. So we transform the multi-use space into a little studio. So what we were able to do is we put the singers inside of plexiglass, and we deposited them there. We couldn't have as many as we normally did because we followed the protocol, but they sang inside of plexiglass in our own studio in Harlem on 126th Street. And that's the way we were able to navigate. And then we got a performing platform where we did concerts on a platform called Looped. So
Mm.
every month we were able to perform and stream from our studio. So that was, as a matter of fact, we have a performance coming up on the 26th of August at 8:30 as part of continuing the music.
Right. Now, chronologically speaking, when you were able to get back and up and running, are we talking about the latter part of last year or the earlier part of this year?
Well, as soon as they said schools opened up and then it closed again. So
Yeah.
when they said you could operate with a mask and socially distance, that's what we did. We did not have theater the way we would normally have
Mm.
theater, like we had Mama I Wanna Sing or Alive 55 Plus and Kick In or Let the Music Play Gospel. We couldn't have in-person theater like we would normally have. Hopefully, we are set up for the end of December, giving it enough time, and hopefully the variant will get away. And then, of course, in the spring of next year, we hope to, resume, theater as usual. But we wanted to be very careful and we wanted to be safe. So we found other ways that we could operate without sitting next to each other in a theater format.
Well, I tell you, that's quite a challenge, and I'm saying to myself, I mean, without being, what's the word am I looking for? I'm having a senior moment, if you will. But the deal is that I know that it's had to affect your revenue stream to a
Oh,
certain extent, as opposed to being in a live theater.
the revenue stream, was definitely affected. But let me tell you that we applied for the PPP,
The first one
and the first one and the
under
second one, and we maintained our staff. We didn't let anybody go. When we had to work from home, that's what we did. When we needed to be in person safely, that's what we did. And so we have resumed our in person offices safely distanced and with masks now.
That is excellent. I can't say
And
that happens for everybody because you actually received the PPP when President Clorox was large and in charge of the country, I'm assuming.
oh, listen. So it wasn't only the pandemic we had other pandemics for the 4 years otherwise. But I also want to say that we also, when we were allowed, we have residencies here in Harlem, and we brought uptown, downtown. Let me say that. We have a
Mm.
residency at Red Rooster where we do a gospel brunch every Sunday, and we were able to resume when they allowed us to open the doors. We started outdoors, performing outdoors. And then when we were allowed, we were able to go back indoors, which is where we are now. And Wayne, I mean, we realized it was just as important for the singer as it was for the audience to have a platform to express themselves during this time period. We also have a residency. We took uptown, downtown. We went to Soho House. We have a residency at Soho House where we bring the music and we say we understand that we've been through something and we got through. We're on the other side. Hopefully, we all collectively have been through something. This has been a quite the challenge. It has.
Right, right. And I guess going forward, you'll have to maintain both platforms. I hate to use that word, but not only the stage, but, as things get better, of course, people would rather be rubbing shoulders and being in the same venue, interacting, and I'm certain the performers would prefer that. But in the meantime, you have that as I don't want to use the word crutch, but it's certainly something to fall back on that could keep you going for the time being. But it sounds like you're an exception to the rule.
Well, I know things are beginning to operate again. I also have to tell you, we're really very proud of the young people. We have over 500 young people, and enrollment begins now for the fall season. And during this pandemic, we utilized every opportunity for Black excellence. That was really important to us. So during this pandemic, we set up a 3-year strategic plan so that when we came out of this, that we would have an opportunity to take advantage of the ideas. So we never stopped. But we also forged some partnerships with the Broadway community during this pandemic, and we set up something called, backstage, because of the Black Lives Matter. People began to recognize that there were, when they look around backstage or off stage, that they did not have a representation of African American employees. Now, they had employees on stage, but not off stage. So attention was paid to begin to train our young people for positions, you know, backstage in the technical department, in the business department, in the company manager, the production assistants. Those doors were not open to us in the past. But through the workforce programs at the Mama Foundation for the Arts, we've been able to place young people in those positions with a job, with a paying salary that begins as Broadway begins to open up. So we were able to do things during the pandemic that we didn't do without it in the performance time period. So the doors have begun to open up, Mr. Payne, behind the scenes in ways that we never saw before.
Wow, it sounds extraordinary, but at the same time, as you mentioned the fact that we all know that there's racism out here. We all know, in spite of all the efforts to improve the landscape for all of us, no matter what walks of life, that there's still those obstacles there. I know Eric Payne. I'm going to bring him into the conversation as well as Byron, because this is something that we see all along. But I just often wonder, if this is a universal effort that you see throughout the theater industry, if you will. Eric?
If I can, Ms. Vi, that's exactly right. The people behind, often the people behind the scenes, they don't look like us a lot of the time. And one of the things I first noticed in working in some TV shows that I worked on in Los Angeles, sitcoms, black sitcoms, that how few black people were working behind the camera, even to write the words that black people were saying. And so that's exactly right that Ms. Vi is saying, that we need to have a pipeline for young black and brown people to be able to get involved behind the scenes. The advent of this technology that we're able to communicate on now has caused everybody to realize that the mystery of making films, TV, theater has been demystified. And so as I noticed with Spike Lee, who worked to get a lot of people behind the camera in unions, fought to get a lot of African Americans in unions that they were traditionally left out of, the same thing that Ms. Vi is doing with Broadway, same thing needs to happen there. And there's a lot of jobs in those areas that we traditionally have been shut out. Ms. Vi is a pioneer in many things. You see a lot of these plays now. People want to call them the Chitlin Circuit, the Shelley Garrett's, the Beauty Shops, and all of these plays that have gone out across America. But, Vi Higginsen with Mama, I Want to Sing was one of the first people to do a play where you did it in your own theater uptown, right, Ms. Vi? Mm-hmm. You went around Broadway, right? And you also had your own, it was basically what we call, if Byron, you remember, four-walling the theater. You had your own audience, you had your own built-in audience. You didn't worry about trying to get, I'm sure you realized or went through the whole experience of trying to take the show downtown to Broadway and having to impress these people who didn't often look like us, who we had to try to convince them why a black play would do well downtown because black people spend that money. And you said, to heck with them, I'm going to do mine uptown. And you kind of were the pioneer in a lot of that stuff. The thing that put Tyler Perry on the map, that put Dave Talbot on the map, you were doing a long time ago. And so people don't know that. I know that. And I'm going to give you the credit for it and let people know that listen to this broadcast that Vi Higginsen was one of the first people, the pioneers, for people like Tyler to come along and make $200 million.
Without question. And I really feel in many ways you are the reincarnate of Barbara Ann Teer, if I may say so, in a positive sense. Because you're keeping the foundation in Harlem going and a place for people of color to go to support. Byron, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my family's been in Harlem for almost 100 years. And this is the epicenter of music.
It is.
This is the African American musical contribution to the world. Mm-hmm. And not to be able to recognize that and to celebrate that and to make sure that it lives forever and make sure that nobody else takes credit for it. And Eric, thank you so much for looking at history in the way that we see it here.
That's right.
Yes, we opened that door and we tried to kick it down. In the face of a lot of no's, we got a lot of rejection before we were able to make a way and open the doors for other people to come through. It's really important. Thank you for that acknowledgement. Appreciate it.
And you have the original Beyonce, someone who was before Beyonce. We talk about Desiree Coleman, Miss Jackson now. I know everybody's on
Come
Beyonce,
on, talk about it.
there was a young woman who had that type of voice, a better voice, who chose a different path in life, did a more sanctified path, if you will. But way before people heard about Beyonce, we in the New York City area knew about Desiree Coleman. Certainly
Right.
those of us that went to see the play, but saw that, it's really crazy, Miss Vi, how you see Beyonce now. You know that Desiree, that was the exact prototype way before you heard of a Beyonce. Don't anybody get me twisted or mistaken. I'm not taking anything away from Beyonce, but I saw somebody do that before. and
Yes.
that could have risen to those type of heights, but because she had a different path, she chose a different path. But if you ever had a chance to see Mama I Want to Sing or hear that voice, that was part of one of the bigger parts of your show. People know that, I was saying that not too long ago, that Desiree was the precursor to Beyonce.
And
Well,
that's
we're gonna-
absolutely true, Eric. And she didn't have to take off her clothes. She did it with her voice.
Wow. All right. Well, I want to ask a question, but we're at a point where we have to take a little break here. We are 32 minutes past the hour here, and this is the Our World Media Network. Wayne Gilman with you on the Urban Algorithm. We are so pleased to have our special guest this afternoon, the queen of broadcasting, playwright, former publisher, Vi Higginsen, playwright, historian, Byron Saunders, and accomplished actor, writer, man about town, Eric Payne is with us. Okay, we're not going to put everybody's business out in the street, but we will be back on this network right after this. Stay tuned.
You get off the plane and you're like, wow, I'm alive.
You have to breathe because it's breathtaking.
Is the center of the world.
Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, Queens.
They have the Rockaways, the beach, the Flushing Meadow Park.
Small places that you never think exist.
From there, we'll go up to the Bronx.
Nature.
Brooklyn. Got Coney Island. You get to happen upon things.
Yes.
Manhattan never gets outclassed.
Chelsea, Soho. Hay cosas ya de lujo. Es un área bien fancy, ¿me entiendes?
Go to the Empire State Building, go to the top of Rockefeller Center.
Staten Island.
Staten Island, there's something for everybody.
New York City's an awesome place to come with family.
You got things for kids, you got things for adults.
Even like museums have amazing story times.
That's the beauty of this organic city. It creates new flavors of what once was coming from another country.
All of it. Everyone's welcome. The biggest rainbow in the world.
Ελάτε στη Νέα Υόρκη.
New York State's largest African American Chamber of Commerce, known as LIAACC, is now accepting new membership candidates. LIAACC has appeared on WABC, Here and Now, NBC's Positively Black, WLIW21, FIOS1, and in Long Island Business News. Membership consists of a variety of men and women of distinction who have been bestowed some of the most prestigious awards in the region. We host monthly membership meetings and signature events, including the Long Island African American Business Expo, Annual Health Fair, Ladies of LIAACC Annual Women's History Month program, and our annual Black History Month art exhibition. Join by simply logging on to our easy new membership sign-up portal at www.liaacc.org.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel.
Kids use music as a way to provide language for their emotions.
Talking about my feelings with my mother, I'm gonna just be quiet. In the back of my head, I'm like, man, this ain't it.
I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
I immigrated to America when I was 20 from a country called Uruguay. I have two careers. I'm in the Army Reserves, and I have a civilian career as an engineer. And I have two wonderful children. Every day is a challenge to make sure that the time that I have, I spend with them. It doesn't matter how tired you are, you have to be there. You have to be present for them. You have to try to teach them. When they learn something new and it just clicks in their brain, I just realized I could do this. And you can just see in their faces. It's such an incredible moment. It's those moments that are They're my favorite.
Hi, my name is Maya Delgado, and I am the brand ambassador of Kids Break Down. And this is my demo video. Enjoy!
Download app on Google Play or App Store.
Create account. Choose avatar.
Enter Kids Breakdown Roadmap.
Roadmap consists of math, spelling, memorization, and matching mini games.
After each minigame, personality and interest questions will appear to pinpoint which job may suit you best. After completion of all 8 minigames, you will be presented with jobs you may want to learn more about.
Read fun facts about all the different types of jobs within the law, science, and arts career.
Use your gold bricks to make your job environment fully complete.
Go back and play minigames to earn more bricks if needed. I hope you enjoyed the Kids Breakdown demo video. Make sure to download today and share with your friends. This platform will pave the way for kids who are just like me, the groundbreakers of tomorrow.
All right, we're back. 37 minutes past the hour here on a Friday afternoon. This is the Air America, excuse me. Can't seem to get retirement out of my head here. This is the Our World Media Network. Urban Algorithm is the program. We are blessed and pleased to have with us the legendary Vi Higginsen, the legendary Eric Payne, and Byron Saunders, another legend who's been somewhat silent, but I know the silent ones you got to look out for. Byron, welcome to the program once again. And I know we've been heaping praise on Ms. Higginsen, well-deserved. And again, I'm really honored to have you here. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what's going on in the industry, Byron, from your vantage point since you're in Washington, D.C., the swamp.
I think one of the amazing things is to understand that we are in the midst of an awakening, a change that is actually happening in front of us. We've prayed for so many things to happen, and I'm encouraged because during the pandemic, I've been more creative over the last 2 years than I've been in quite some time, not thinking about money, but concentrating on the things that drive my passion: theater, entertainment, film, preservation, directing. For 8 years, I was the director of the Queens Historical Society. So preserving the antiquity of theater, and over in Roy Wilkins Park, I was first general manager for Carl Clay's Black Spectrum Theater. So in understanding the two mix very much together, and even with Vi Higginsen, we kind of met in Atlanta, Georgia, when I was running Just Us Theater Company. And at that time, this was back in the 80s, Vi Higginsen was having her show, Mama I Want to Sing, was playing in New York and on the road. And I happened to have a chance to be on the road in the bus and truck tour of Mama I Want to Sing for about 6 weeks in Birmingham and Norfolk and the Scope. And I mean, a very enjoyable trip, but working with the legendary people in our business. Vi Higginsen has laid the groundwork for so many of us, and we've taken a journey and a path down this road, not just for the applause and the money. God knows we're not making the money that we're valued to because of our art, but Lord knows we are lauded and praised as the ancestors are proud of the fact that we can take the story and put it on the stage, put it on the screen. I mean, I've got a project right now that talks about the pandemic as well as using Zoom technology live on stage. I mean, we have had an opportunity over this time period to use the greatest nation in the world. You know what that is, Eric and Vi and Wayne? The greatest nation in the world is the imagination. If we use it properly, we can make change happen. And it's so much a part of what we're doing because it's wrapped up in our spiritual journey as much as our theater and social and political and economic and educational journey, because the spirituality of what we do was born in a secular church kind of give and take response. That's what church is. We do that every Sunday. So when Vi has a session in her production, you can be best assured you're getting some church. Now, I ask a question because here's something that's critical to all of us, wrapping the politics, the theater, and the theatrics of what we do. Before Christ was born, Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho.
Here we
And the
go.
walls came tumbling down.
Here.
Now, I'm going to ask the question, did it come tumbling down just like that? Because if they did, that's a special effects that worthy of anything that Broadway or TV or movies can create. But they wrote it as such. Now you have to ask the question, because they did the week. Every day they walked along the walls of Jericho with the Ark of the Covenant in front of them. And then the last day, on the seventh day, they walked around Jericho 7 times with the ark in front of it, and the walls came tumbling down. Now, what you see happening in Washington, D.C. right now is because our civil rights movement, the theatrics of the drama of the civil rights movement, is showing America you don't have to storm a Capitol to get what you want. There's a proper way to protest in a democracy, and it's because of the theatrics of a movement that is created on a stage so that I Have a Dream speech becomes the opera of the 20th century.
Amen.
That's what we're about.
Amen.
And that's why we are able to succeed. Believe me, there are stories very much like what Vi's whole story is a whole theater experience in itself. And I've got projects like for myself. I've got a show that's about to open up in New York at the Theater for the New City for a 2-week run, a 2-week limited run, Theater for the New City, not producing Black theater, but producing a story about 2 aged white actresses who haven't spoken to each other in quite some time because they were involved with the same man. And it takes place at the Players Club. You know these actresses, Mary Tierney and Mary Ellen Ashley, 2 very good actresses. But it made us go back into our creative mode and say, if we can do theater for our community, we can do it for the world to make change happen. That's what we're doing right now. And it's important to understand we're not just doing theater and art for art's sake. We're in a movement. This movement is places where you go to previously to escape the plantation was the Underground Railroad. I like to call it the stuff we're doing right now as the new Underground Railroad Express, because you come to our theater, you come to our entertainment venue, and you see what's happening on Broadway right now. Every theater's got a Black show playing. Why is that? Did the walls come tumbling down in Jericho? I go back to the question because it's important to recognize, was it just theater, or were they really telling a story worthy to be told?
Well, I hate to cut you off in your last thought there, Byron, but the one thing that I find commendable and really something that is important with this, Vi, is that you've been able to stand alone. You did not need to go to Broadway. You brought Broadway uptown. And you know, when Byron was mentioning some of the projects he's working on, what inspired you to get into Mama, I Want to Sing? I remember you as a successful publisher, but what led to theater?
I'll tell you, you know, when you look back over your life and you see the roads, you know, taken and not taken, I remember I was working at WWRL, and I did a morning show, was a Wake Up with a Woman, it was called, and Bob Law was the program director. When Bob Law was taken out of that position, they put a new program director in his place. They took me off the morning show.
What?
And they put me on at 2 a.m.
Oh, Lord.
2 to 6 o'clock.
That was a
And it
message.
was the hardest, most difficult, most painful thing, going from the celebrated morning show to 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, Gary Bird, who is a New York personality, would be getting off the air. And when he came in, I had my book open. When I came in, I opened my book and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I am writing. I am writing my way out of a 2 a.m. slot." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm writing a show called Mama, I Want to Sing." And he tells
Wow.
that story all the time. But you know, sometimes one door closes, another door opens, and that's where you have to kind of find that way to the next level. And I knew that these stories were important. These kinds of stories. When people turned you down, you have to understand they were turning you down because their image of who we are was different than who we know ourselves to be. So when they said your show don't have any pimps, it don't have any hoes, it don't have any violence, it don't have any bombs, it don't have any people, you know, like nobody's gonna want to see that show. And we said, well, I don't know that show. I know this show. I know what happened in my family with my father, who was a minister, and my mother, and the choices that we had to make just to survive. And so yeah, we had to have that opportunity. But what you learn on this journey, Wayne and Eric and Mr. Saunders, that theater really isn't about theater. Theater is about real estate. And if you don't have access to the real estate, it's really difficult to put your images on stage. Yes, now things have changed. Like somebody says, well, wait a minute, I think maybe we did get this wrong. Maybe there is an audience, because before Mama, I Want to Sing, you know, that it didn't seem like there was enough people who would come out and pay for a show. And we would say, oh, there's enough people. You're just not giving them the kind of show they want to see. That's the bottom line. I work for Ebony Magazine. And at Ebony Magazine, we were in touch with the Black consumer market. And that market is big and it's bold and extensive, and we need to make sure that their needs are met. And that's what happened to us, based on the fact that I had facts and numbers in my head that knew that audience was there. And we've proven it over and over. And Tyler Perry has proven it over. And you know, at one point, we were the largest employers of Black entertainment talent 52 weeks a year than any other company in America.
Wow.
And that's a fact. Now, I know we can go out and we can do shows, you know, in season, and then we stop. And so then the work becomes seasonal. But to have a show that you can work in for 8 years that has a sold out audience, we did 10 shows a week. It was amazing. The audience, people were amazed that the audiences was there to see quality theater at good prices.
And a lot of the production and the work was coming out of a church, if I recall correctly, right? One of the Harlem institutions. I can't think of which one. With regard to Mama, I Want to Sing.
Well, you know, here's the thing. If you, and as a historian, you will know the evolution of African American music, period. And on the stage, we had the source of radio was a source of music.
Right.
And growing up here in Harlem, I always tell the story, you know, Harlem was the epicenter, and music was everywhere during that time period. I'm telling my age now. But the music came from the church. It was gospel. The music came from the clubs, and it was jazz. And the music came from the Apollo, which was R&B, and the music came from the radio. And so those people who was creating music during that time period was some of the greatest geniuses of
Thank
all
you.
time, because not only could they sing the music, they could write it, they could perform it, they could arrange it. When you think about the greatness that came out of that time period. It cannot be denied. It wasn't just, and I love all kind of music, and I'm not putting anything down. But if you think about the Philadelphia sound, if you think about Stevie Wonder, if you think about Teddy Pendergrass, if you think about the sound of Roberta Flack and Peabo Bryson, when you think about the music that came out of WBLS, WWRL, and WLIB, that galvanized the city. Because the genius of the music. And so that's part of what Mama I want to sing. When you say the music started in the church, and the show starts in the church. And then we cover every single genre. And we make sure that we don't forget people like Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, Nina Simone, all the rest of them who are part of the American musical landscape. Now, I know we got rap, and I know we got hip-hop, and we got contemporary music, and we got Beyonce and Rihanna or Jay-Z and all of that. That's all fine. But let's not forget that we have a musical history, and we have a musical genius, and we had people who played real instruments.
Exactly.
And who can play multiple instruments. They were just musically inclined.
And very often.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm really very
No. It is great to hear this, because I think people need to be reminded. You know, I hate to sound like as if I'm an old expletive, but at this point in my life, I could tell quality from decadence. And I'm not saying that some of the stuff that's out there that's current today doesn't have a certain amount of quality, but I would, I even think of your late sister, Doris Troy. I used to admire some of the work. It wasn't even about an instrument, it was what was coming out of one's voice, Yes. And the sophistication that you brought to New York radio. I'm not just saying, if I was in a room with other people around me and you weren't there, I would say the same thing. I'm not putting down some of the people who are prominent today, but I go back to the time when you and I were working, that you couldn't get Ivory Soap on a WLIB or WBLS to advertise.
Exactly.
So, and anybody, I don't know who the old muckety muck that puts you on at 2 o'clock in the morning, obviously did not know your history. That you had some of the highest numbers in the ARB when, I remember going to the beaches. I'm not trying to sound like as if I was a child. I'm just a little bit behind you when I started my career. But the thing is that I go back to the time when BLS was the total black experience of sound, and Frankie Crocker was catching a lot of hell because it was the total black experience. I was at WINS as a writer then. I would go out to the Hamptons, all these white folks out there listening to us, listening to what we, and to me that was a groundbreaking, seminal moment in time.
Yes.
And it may not ever happen again, but it forwarded, we dictate American culture. And this is what your legacy has been about, and I'm just so pleased to have you here.
Wayne, thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. But we're, Mr. Saunders, we are in an archival moment. Someone donated a space to us to archive this black history, this black theater, this black Harlem. And I got to tell you, Wayne, Eric, as I'm digging through these archives, I came up with an album, Mention Doris Troy. It was recorded live at the Apollo Theater in 1963. And who's on that album?
Who?
Otis Redding.
Wow.
The Coasters. The Falcons. Benny King and Doris Troy.
Wow.
The only woman on that album. It's insane.
Is that, can that be purchased, or is it just something that's archival, or?
I think that's a little piece of history. I don't know if you can find it. I found it in the archives and I was jumping for joy. I said,
wow.
This is evidence of those girls that came. The first, I call them the first girls. Doris Troy, Ruth Brown,
Mary Wells,
built Atlantic Records. Hello.
Yeah,
those were the early girls.
Right, before Aretha, who's getting a lot of recognition now, Aretha Franklin.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All part of that history.
What's
Eric?
encouraging to
Oh.
me during this pandemic is that our medium, the Black theater community, is very much alive. You know, the Kennedy Center shuts down, Broadway shuts down, but you know what? The Zoom technology and an opportunity to not work within a studio and be encumbered by the cost factor. Because once
Yes.
again, the imagination had to be explored. How do we reach an audience that prior to the pandemic wasn't coming out in groves to our productions anyway? So
Right.
now we have to think about, well, if the mountain won't come to Muhammad, Muhammad must go to the mountain. And at
That's
this
right.
point, create the stories. It's amazing. Look what was the YouTube and the underground movement of independent filmmaking has elevated itself without an economic boom, but mostly because they've used technology and imagination to cross a boundary that didn't cost anything. Why?
Right.
Because the genius of creating the stories, as Hosea Williams once told me and his daughter, Elizabeth Omalami, as we were doing People Survival Theater in Atlanta with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He said, Byron, Liz, I don't know why y'all continue to do theater that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Tell one story from the civil rights movement and you'll have a hit for the rest of your life. And when you look at every stage play, every film made from Chandra to Miss Avery Duvet, all of them have made stories that have resonated with us because we have so many heroes and sheroes whose stories have never ever been explored and told properly. It's always been bastardized, and it's like they say, I mean, how many more times do you have to do another cop and robber show? But how many times can you do a Fannie Lou Hamer show? How many times can you do a Medgar show? How many times can you do a Doris Troy story? How many times can you do a Vi Higginson or Eric Payne or Wayne Gilman? Come on. We are legends who are in a time period where we don't need to be quiet anymore. We, the illuminated, must begin to speak the message to the people who are waiting to hear it. They want to hear truth. It's about getting back to the truth. And because it's been quashed so long, it's amazing that when you hear it, I tell you, Eric, Wayne, how long have we been saying the man committed treason? I think it was on November the 7th of the 2016, wasn't it? When we said, come on now, everybody, all the black journalists, all the black talking heads have been calling this what it is for the last 5 years.
Well, before we lost Kay, she would always refer to him as Hitler.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah. So I
and
mean,
it's
we
amazing.
can do this,
Turned out
and
to be
that's the
Hitler.
part I love about the fact that what it is that you're creating by is your door has never been closed. You've always opened it up, and you smashed it down, and you've broken all the traditions and taboos that weren't supposed to be done, and you're still kicking ass and taking names and collecting checks.
If you understand,
Wait,
if you
still
understand,
kicking,
you
but wait
understand the
till you see
historical
what's coming
significance of
next.
it.
If I got my way, we're going to have a headquarters so that when you write your play, that we can have a space to produce it in that nobody else can tell us, get out. We
Yeah.
don't want no black folks in this
Right.
theater on Fifth
Right.
Avenue. Because that's what they
Wow.
said. I went through that. And another one,
Right.
they lease expired and that. So we have to have spaces where we're in control. Or somebody, you write something and they say, hey, Vi, give it to me and you go sit in the corner. No, I don't want to say, how do you know more about what I just wrote than I, who just wrote it? And that's what we've been living with. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's why I said, things are changing though. I do sense it. And this medium, and you're right, but it's leveled the playing field to some extent.
Yeah.
And the expense of doing business,
But we have to
has
be
shifted.
careful. There's a danger here, an imminent danger that we cannot allow the entertainment business we help to create to become elite, affordable, elitist art. Because right now, if you don't have your card that says you're vaccinated, or you don't come to sit down with a mask on, you can't get into the theaters on Broadway. Well, they're overpriced anyway, but it's like the country takes its move from what happens in New York City.
Yeah, I
And
was
we
gonna
don't need to have our art and our form of art become so expensive to get a ticket, which is what it was doing. Couldn't get a ticket for Hamilton
Yeah,
if
I
you
was
tried.
going to say that, B, that it was already elite from
It was already
for the
elite, and it
ticket
was
prices.
beyond belief and
That was
out of
part of the issue.
control.
If you try
Yeah,
to see
Eric.
some August Wilson, pieces, right?
Well,
If we
listen
wanted
here,
the
Byron. Do you know that if you want a ticket to see Bruce Springsteen, it's $850?
right.
Yeah,
$850 to
yeah.
sit and see Bruce Springsteen.
I'd have to borrow that money from Eric. You know, I mean, not that I want to see him anyway, you know, but, you know, can you imagine?
I was going to say, speaking from our culture, from our perspective, is like I was saying, if you have a playwright like August Wilson, who was doing plays that certainly all of our people should have seen, and they're on Broadway, and tickets at that time, this is when the $100 price, $150 price. But the people who need to see the plays, who they resonate with the most, are priced out. Byron was talking about the elitism for a long time, just like the revenue streams and the economic opportunities that came with taking your own plays out and producing your own plays. Miss Vi was the trailblazer, but I don't think that you reap the benefits quite as much as someone like Tyler or even Shelley Garrett before him, or people like that were able to reap on taking your plays out on the road. I mean, you know, it got to a point where people like David Talbert, who started his career doing plays on the road like that, and Tyler Perry, people were doing established actors, TV and film actors wanted to get in these plays because they were able to make as much money as they were able to make on a sitcom in some cases. You had Shamar Moore going out on tours with plays. You had a number of people, Kalita Smith, a number of established actors and actresses that we've all seen in sitcoms and TV shows that were willing to go out and go on the road to do these shows because the amount of money and their notoriety being in these shows and these plays going directly to the black community. You know, I was in Actors Equity and all these things, and I would go to a Actors Equity regional theater, and across town, in the neighborhood, in the hood, if you even want to say, is the Beauty Shop or a play, one of these plays that marketed directly to the black community. We're going to be here. We're hitting town at this time. Everybody come out and see it. And they're selling out, and the tickets are going for, you know, whatever, $25 or whatever, but they're selling out 1,500, 1,600 seat theaters. I'm in the regional theater that might do one black play a year, that might have 700 seats, and the black people in town, when I go out to see, this is back in the day anyway, when I would go to dinner or something, they wouldn't even know about the show being in town.
Wow.
Because the theaters wouldn't really market. They would have their subscriber base, so they wouldn't really need to go outside and add an additional advertising campaign. And so what would happen is that the shows that were targeting the black community, that were from the black community, were getting people out to come see these shows. And the shows, you know, unfortunately, people were missing out on other black plays, black playwrights' work because they're part of the quote system, for lack of a better phrase, Miss Vi. You know, that system of Broadway that shut you out back in the day and things like that. But it was flipped. These people that came after you, they were able to flip it, and now guys have TV studios and things like that. So I'm sure you understood that process as well. I think your mic is muted.
Acknowledge what I heard you say, Eric, because what typically happens is that the pioneer who blazes the trail is not the beneficiary of the dollars and cents. The path was blazed, but the dollar wasn't there. I'll give you an example, and that has happened many times. And I'm hoping that the future will correct that. But when I started in radio, in those early days, I made $125 a week. 6 days a week, and that was pioneering. And you would say, well, listen, I can't make it on $125 a week. I can't pay my rent. So that was pioneering.
And this is WBLS, right?
This was WBL. These are facts. I'm telling you, this was WBLS 120. Now, the girls that came after me, they made $125,000 a year.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know, afterwards, you know, some of them was on BLS Wayne after that.
Right.
But as Pioneer, I didn't get that money.
I know. And you laid the blueprint. You were the blueprint.
We wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
literally.
And, so the same thing happened in theater. So we understood where we played. Some people call it the Chitlin Circuit, but you know, Mama I Want to Sing never played the Chitlin Circuit.
No, you were.
We played Broadway-sized theaters that didn't in the past would not allow non-union shows to come into those theaters.
Right.
So we broke that barrier by letting them, and we sold out in almost every place we went, so we were welcome back. So the union guys couldn't be mad because otherwise many of those theaters were in inner cities and there was no activity. So we brought the Memphis Theater, the Orpheum Theater. In Atlanta, we played the Fox. You got 6,000 seats. We sold that. It's like an hour 4 times. So, you know, that's
the rippling effect of that economy that's created.
I don't have a recording studio. We won some, we lost some, we made some money, we lost some money, you know. That was the whole idea. And you said the greatest power is the imagination. So we got the joy of being a pioneer. We got the joy of writing the handbook. This is how you reach the Black consumer market. This is what they're looking for. But I'm hoping like before it's all over,
it's time to get some of the benefits.
That pioneer is going to come piling down.
It's coming. I believe. I feel it already. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Hard to believe. Wow. You know, we could have done another hour again, but I'm so grateful to have all of you here. Vi, it's been a long time since we've done anything together. I consider this a historic moment, at least in my life. And it's great to have Eric and Byron. You know, I'm going to have everyone back as soon as we can. And that concludes this edition of the Urban Algorithm for this week, August 6th, 2021. We thank you for viewing. If you happen to like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, keep it to yourself. I'm Wayne Gilbert. I'm your host. We'll be back. And that concludes this edition. Thank you very much for listening.
Bye. It's always...